Hi and hello, my name is Cass, and welcome to my channel where I read books and I talk about them. March is upon us, which begins the spring quarter of my 100 book challenge for the year. This month we're being slightly more ambitious on my list by one book. That's right, we are going for 9 books this month. So, let's get into it. To start this month off, we are reading Behooved by M. Stevenson. This is the book that me and my siblings lovingly call the horse book. This is a recommendation from my sister, and another book that we plan on reading together. So this book is about Bianca. She is a noblewoman who is put into an arranged marriage with, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Eric, but with an A. Arik? We're gonna go with Eric, just to be safe, I guess. He is a super cold prince of a neighboring kingdom, and she does this in order to avoid a war. However, on their wedding night, thanks to an assassination attempt, Eric is turned into a horse. And as one does when threatened and having no other options, she hops on his back and rides to safety. He returns to human form at night, but now the two have another issue on top of the whole horse by day, prince by night thing, and it's that the assassination is actually part of a bigger plot against the throne. So the two embark on a journey to unravel the curse, save the throne, and fall in love. This is fantasy romance, of course. This one is interesting sounding. It is certainly not one I would have necessarily picked up by myself, but my sister recommended it, and at the very least we can make fun of it if it's a little too much. But who knows? Maybe I'll enjoy it far more than I expect. We're definitely gonna find out. I'm going to definitely read this one as part of my monthly reading vlog, both because it's first, and also because, like, who could pass up the opportunity? This is either gonna go really good or really bad, and I guarantee you it's probably gonna be funny either way. Next up, we have The Safe Keep by Yale Verder-Wooden, I believe. I decided to pick this one up based on a recommendation from one of my favorite booktubers, The Book Leo. This is a Dutch novel, though of course my version is in English, and it is the debut novel of Dear Wooden. So this book takes place in 1961 in the Dutch countryside, where the main character, Isabel, lives in her late mother's house. Her quiet life is upended when her brother comes by and drops off his girlfriend, Eva, to stay with her for the season. And just an interjection from me here for a second. What? He just drops his girlfriend off to stay with his sister without notice. For why? I have a lot of questions. Like, maybe I'm just not understanding what it was like in the Dutch countryside in the 60s, but what? Moving on. So Eva is the opposite of Isabel. She's loud, she doesn't seem to have a schedule, she messes with things that she shouldn't. And Isabel starts to become really angry, and this anger turns into this obsession. And eventually that spirals into this paranoia when things around her house start going missing. And somehow the paranoia leads into infatuation, and these two women fall into some kind of relationship, and they discover a lot of things that neither of them have ever expected about themselves. From what I've heard, this is a very interesting book that's driven by its characters more than anything else. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I've been really into queer fiction recently since it's not that I didn't know it was a genre, but I hadn't been reading, and then so when I started reading, I'm like, ooh, look, queer fiction. I got really into that. And this one seems up my alley, especially I really like queer horror and queer thrillers, and this seems like it might have an element of psychological thriller maybe, with the paranoia and the things going missing. So let's hope it lives up to my hopes. Next, we have the first 2 books in the Hierarchy series by James Islington, The Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few. Usually I try to wait until series are complete before I start reading them. Just look at last month and The Diviners. It had been 2 years since I'd read the first 2. That's why. I don't like to forget about them. But the first book in this series sounded super interesting when I heard about it, so I really wanted to pick it up. And thankfully the second book released in November of last year, so I have 2 of the books in the series to read. I don't know if it's meant to be a trilogy or what, but I will read these 2, and then I will add, now that I have a to be read like spreadsheet, I'll just add the series to it so I remember to keep an eye on things. So The Will of the Many and its sequel are dark academia fantasy novels. They are set in the fictional Catenian, I believe is how you pronounce it, the Catenian Republic. And in this republic, the upper classes use technology to force the lower classes to give up their quote unquote will. It's their mental and physical energy, and it results in the few having a huge amount of strength, like the strength of 100 men, and therefore they rule over the masses. Our main character goes by Viz, and he seems to be a bit of an odd case. He claims to be an orphan who entered this elite academy, Catenian Academy, through good fortune. In reality, the Republic killed his family. He's the sole survivor, and now he's out for vengeance. While attempting vengeance, he's got to keep, his identity secret so that he doesn't get killed. I honestly don't know a ton about the second book. I haven't really looked into it on purpose, but the first is enough to make me really excited about this series as it is, so I'm not terribly concerned. Honestly, if I'm remembering right, I don't think I've read any epic fantasy this year, so I'm excited to sink my teeth into this one. That and dark academia is really intriguing for me. It's a genre I'm really liking a lot of, so it'll be fun. I'll be listening to the audiobook of the first one, which is gonna be interesting because I kind of struggle with audiobooks. They're hard for me. But my hope is, I can get some good walking done while listening to it, listen to it in the car, just, really do things that lets me listen to it while focusing, because that's the hard part. I get distracted really easily. On to our next book. In honor of the Shakespeare show that my theater will be doing this spring, I will be reading If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Continuing our little trend this month of dark academia books, this one is about 7 students at this elite art school, and they study Shakespeare and are probably really pretentious about it. One of them, Oliver, at the beginning of the book, has gotten out of jail for a crime he may or may not have committed while in this school, and the detective who put him away sits down with them to, discover the truth about what really happened. And so through Oliver's account, he flashes back to this time when him and the other 6 students were at the school, what really happened, and what led to that fateful murder that put him in jail. I like Shakespeare. Personally, it's always been easiest for me to see it performed rather than read it. Old English is hard sometimes. So it's just easier for me to grasp when I'm watching it, because regardless of if I understand the language or not, the actions and the tone of the actors, really does it, So in March, we will be doing one of these plays at my workplace, so I thought it would be the perfect time to read this book. Because, I've heard that it has a ton of Shakespeare references, which makes sense since they study Shakespeare. I'm hoping working the play will help me understand some of the quotes that are supposedly in it a little bit more. And hopefully the shows I've seen in the past of Shakespeare's will help as well. But it should be a good thriller to read. I'm not gonna say fun, but maybe a little fun. We'll see. Now we have another of my sister's recommendations. When I told my siblings I was doing this, 100 book challenge for the year, I had asked them for recommendations. I asked for recommendations from a lot of my friends and family, because I'm trying to expand my genre horizons and, really get into books that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up myself. And my sister had a great many recommendations for me. You'll see them pop up a few more times. And one of the things is she's a very big fan of Peter Beagle. So my next book is by Peter Beagle. It is The Innkeeper's Song. This is a fantasy book that features Takat. He is on the search for his lover who was killed and then resurrected. And his travels bring him across these 3 women who are also on their own impossible mission, and they all end up under the roof of the same inn. along with the innkeeper, of course, and his stable boy. And the stable boy starts to get involved with the three women. I don't know a ton about it. I remember some things from when my sister was reading it that she had told me, but I don't know, like, where all that lies in the grand scheme of things, so, we'll see. Out of all of Peter Beagle's books, my sister offered me 2 to try, that she thinks I'll like the most. This one seems to feature some, like, romance and, like, a polyamorous relationship. I'm not entirely sure what to expect out of it, but I am going to give it a try and hope that I don't break my sister's heart if I don't like it. But we are going to give it a try. We're going to give it... I'm really hoping. I need to actually get it ordered because it's not in the library for some reason. So our last 3 books are a series, a completed one this time. I have got the One of Us is Lying series by Karen M. McManus on the docket. All 3 books back to back, which is why this TBR is 9 books instead of my usual 8. I'm hoping this time I enjoy all 3 books all the way through, unlike back in January when another trilogy of thrillers disappointed me greatly in the end. And no, I'm still not over it. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. This series is about a group of 4 students who, in the first book, they all end up in detention together, along with a 5th student whose name is Simon. Only by the end of detention, Simon is dead. And the police don't think it's an accident. So that makes the 4 students in the room the suspects, and they all have a motive. You see, Simon was an outcast, and he also ran the high school's most notorious gossip app, and he planned to release dirt on all 4 of the students that were also in detention with him the day after he died. So begins the investigation of who among them did it. The following books seem to, like, follow the legacy of Simon even after his death as, like, other threats emerge, and I know that saying it that way sounds dramatic, but also, like, seems correct. Based on the brief summary of these other books, at least, this is the vibe I get. In any case, we will be wrapping up this month with these thriller books, in theory. Knowing me, we very well may be dipping into some of my extra TBR books that are just sitting on my shelves. I have another thriller book. I've got a few Ryan LaSala books that I'm still have to read. So we'll see. In any case, this wraps up my March TBR. I'm very excited for some of the entries on this list this month. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books yourself, if you're excited to hear my thoughts on any of them, or what you thought of them if you read them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!